players are waking up in cold sweats, and what's keeping them up at night should absolutely terrify anyone who abandoned the PGA Tour for Saudi money. Behind closed doors, something is unraveling fast, and nobody wants to say it out loud. Agents are making panicked phone calls at midnight. Contracts are being scrutinized by lawyers who suddenly look very concerned. And the whispers leaking out of locker rooms tell a story that's the complete opposite of what LIV wants the world to believe. So here's the question nobody's asking publicly, but everyone's thinking privately. Is LIV Golf actually running out of money? And why are some of the league's biggest stars suddenly hunting for escape routes like rats abandoning a sinking ship? The truth is way more dramatic, way more desperate, and way more catastrophic than anyone expected. Let's rewind to where this disaster actually started, because understanding how we got here makes the current chaos even more insane. When LIV Golf launched, it didn't just enter the golf world politely, it exploded into it like a grenade with the pin pulled. The league was throwing around contracts that made people's jaws physically drop. We're talking $100 million, $150 million. Some whispers even suggested deals pushing past $300 million, all paid entirely up front. Private jets to every single event. Prize money so astronomically massive, it made PGA Tour purses look like spare change you'd find in your couch. Golf's biggest names were getting offers they literally couldn't refuse, and the entire sport went into absolute meltdown mode. The PGA Tour fought back viciously, threatening lifetime bans and stripping players of their tour cards. Friendships exploded overnight. Legends like Rory McIlroy felt personally betrayed and didn't hide it. The golf world split into two furious camps, and lawsuits started flying in every direction like shrapnel. But through all that chaos, LIV players kept repeating the same mantra like it was. Gospel truth. We're set for life. The money's guaranteed. This league isn't going anywhere. They believed it completely, and why wouldn't they? When you're backed by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, a sovereign wealth fund worth over $700 billion, running out of money sounds physically impossible, right? But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. From day one, the math never actually worked. LIV was spending money at a rate that defied every basic rule of business logic. Analysts started doing the calculations, and the numbers were absolutely terrifying. Events were costing tens of millions to produce but generating almost nothing in return. Television deals that were supposed to bring in massive revenue never materialized. Sponsorship money that should have been flooding in stayed completely away. And the league was burning through an estimated $200 to $400 million every single year with absolutely no signs of slowing down. At first, everyone assumed this was just the cost of launching something revolutionary, the price of disruption. But LIV wasn't losing money like a normal startup. It was losing money like a ship taking on water faster than anyone could bail. The league kept spending like the cash fountain would never run dry, throwing extravagant parties, flying players around in ridiculous luxury, and pumping millions into marketing campaigns that barely moved the needle even slightly. And then the television disaster happened, and it was worse than anyone could have imagined. LIV's big bet was the CW network, a deal that was supposed to finally give them mainstream American exposure and legitimacy. This was the moment that would change everything, the turning point they'd been waiting for, or so they said, but the reality was absolutely brutal. Some CW stations flat out refused to air LIV events at all. Others buried them in terrible time slots or bumped them for reruns of decade-old shows. Viewership numbers were catastrophically low, sometimes pulling fewer than 300,000 viewers nationwide. To put that in perspective, PGA Tour events were regularly hitting multiple millions. One sports analyst didn't hold back, saying LIV's ratings looked like late-night infomercial numbers. That's not just bad. That's a complete and total disaster. And then, almost as quietly as it started, the CW deal just vanished. No big announcement, no explanation. It just disappeared like it never existed. LIV tried pivoting to streaming platforms, but that turned into another mess. Fans complained about glitchy feeds, broadcasts that cut out mid-round, and events that were nearly impossible to find. The team format that LIV kept promoting as revolutionary, the audience didn't care. They didn't follow the standings, they didn't connect with the concept, it just didn't work. If you're hooked on this drama, smash that like button and subscribe because LIV's collapse gets even more dramatic. Then came the player backlash, and this is where things get really uncomfortable for LIV. The league had promised these guys absolutely everything. Guaranteed money, sure, but also creative freedom, lighter schedules, and a chance to revolutionize the sport they loved. But reality hit like a freight train. Players started realizing they weren't earning official world golf ranking points, which meant their global standing was plummeting fast. They were losing automatic exemptions into major championships, the tournaments that actually define legacies and careers. Some felt genuinely trapped by contracts that made it nearly impossible to return to the PGA Tour, even if they desperately wanted to. And here's the part that should terrify every LIV player lying awake at night. Rumors started spreading that several massive names had their agents quietly, very quietly, exploring exit options. These weren't fringe players or guys on the bubble. These were legitimate stars who'd taken massive upfront checks and were now second-guessing absolutely everything. One insider described it perfectly, saying everyone was riding high when the money first hit their accounts. But after the honeymoon phase ended, a lot of guys realized they'd traded prestige, legacy, and their entire reputation for financial uncertainty. Then, the merger bombshell dropped, and it shook the entire golf world to its absolute core. Out of nowhere, completely unexpected, the PGA Tour and LIV announced they were exploring a merger. Nobody saw it coming. LIV players found out through news reports like everyone else. PGA Tour players felt blindsided and utterly betrayed by their own leadership. Within days, the US government opened investigations. Deadlines came and went with zero progress. Negotiations stalled completely behind closed doors, and trust between both sides evaporated like water in the desert. Behind the scenes, the financial reality was even uglier than anyone publicly acknowledged. Analysts estimated LIV was losing a minimum of $200 million per year, with some believing the real number was closer to $400 million annually. Add in the massive upfront contracts, constant international travel costs, expensive event production, and aggressive marketing spending, and insiders started openly questioning whether the business model could ever possibly work. So, where does this leave us? When you look at everything together, the catastrophic TV ratings, the sponsor exodus, the failed CW deal, the player frustration, the stalled merger, and those staggering financial losses, one question becomes impossible to ignore. Is LIV Golf actually in serious trouble? Here's the brutally honest answer. LIV isn't officially bankrupt. There's no formal filing, no public announcement, no confirmed collapse. But the warning signs are everywhere, loud and impossible to miss. Even loyal LIV supporters are starting to ask uncomfortable questions they never thought they'd have to ask. The confidence that defined the league's early days has been completely replaced by uncertainty and doubt. The bold promises about revolutionizing golf forever have given way to defensive statements and desperate PR spin. Maybe LIV finds a way to turn this around. Maybe the merger somehow saves both leagues. Maybe Saudi Arabia decides to keep funding the experiment regardless of returns or logic. But maybe, just maybe, we're watching one of the most expensive sports experiments in history slowly crumble in real time, burning billions on its way down. The cracks are showing, the pressure is building, and the players who bet their entire careers on LIV's promises are starting to realize that guaranteed money doesn't mean guaranteed security. LIV's future isn't what anyone thought it would be 2 years ago.